Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Today we have Zac Woodfin with us. He's a former NFL player and now a coach, and he's from Prattville, Alabama. I'm super excited to hear your story, man. We've been trying to get him on for a little bit, but we've both been like, hey, you know, when it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. And just circumstances lined up, and he was here. We get to hear it now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here, and man, great, awesome studio. Got to train here earlier this morning, and so fired up to be here.
Yeah. So you grew up in Prattville, but then moved to Birmingham later on.
Yeah. So I went to college in Birmingham after graduating Prattville High School, and went to UAB. I played football in college, and after that, kind of went all over the place, all over the world, really, playing and coaching, and have since found myself back in Birmingham coaching, which is an area our family loves, so it's cool.
Did you always know when you were a kid, hey, I want to be an NFL football player? Like, that's my goal.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
That was it?
Yeah, I knew early on. My mom actually still has, like, this little journal. I think it was a project for school, but I had to write, and she saved it. But it says, I want to go to college, play football on scholarship, and I want to play in the NFL. And that was at like 6, 7 years old.
Wow.
So
That's awesome. Were your parents pretty, like, supportive of you playing, I mean, obviously playing football growing up and then sort of getting you to that point as well?
no doubt. My dad coached me all the way probably until like junior high school in football. But they were super supportive. You know, it was like when it came time for me to want to really take the next steps in my athletic career and try to achieve a college scholarship. I can remember, and I tell this story a lot of times about my parents' support, but just how important it is to like believe in your children's dreams. So I needed to get faster if I was going to play college football. I was not blessed with all this speed. And back in early 2000s, or really probably 1999, 98, there wasn't all these speed coaches like there are now. The closest one to where we lived was like an hour away. And I can remember, like, we found him, and I thought, like, I've got to go to this guy if I'm gonna run this 40 in the time that I need to, and I got to go to this guy. And told my parents, they're like, all right, if this is really what you think you need to do, so like after school, 2 or 3 times a week, they'd get in their car and they'd drive me an hour, train with this guy, we drive an hour back.
Wow.
And like, I think of myself now as a parent, I'm like,
Yeah.
would I do that? Like, if my son came up to me and he's like, Dad, I have to do this, like, would I really be like, cool, son, I got you. Let's go. Yeah. Over and over. And I probably did it for 2 or 3, 4 months. Wow. And so, they were supportive. And that's a story just to show, like, they were
that's awesome.
Helping me out. And I'm really blessed to have them.
I think we all take it for granted when we're little, like, coming up, and all the stuff that our parents actually, like, went out of their way and did for us until we actually become parents. And now I'm like, I think about it all the time. I'm like, dude, my dad coached me and did all these things, like extracurricular activities for sports. And, there was no way I wasn't going, like, into any professional, but he was adamant. He's like, you will play, like, sports all growing up. But the time that they take me to the practices every day, drop-offs, pickups, or just, like, involving themselves in it. And now I'm doing that with my kids, and you're like, dude, I give it to, hats off to my parents, and I saw, to yours too. It's like, that's a lot of dedication and hard work to, like, invest in your child.
Right. Right.
They ever tell you, like, well, we shouldn't shoot for the NFL. Few people are going to actually make it.
Never.
Wow.
Yeah. Never. They never tried to
put doubt in your mind.
Doubt that, I think my mom and dad, they were really good about, like, reality, but they never once put doubt in my mind that I could not do something. They never said, hey, Zach, maybe you should just settle for Division II, because like it was like college scholarship D1, and that was it. And they never Yeah, they never. And I think that's another great lesson, you know, because we can naturally, I think, if we see it in ourselves or our kids, be like, that's too big of a dream. That's too big of a goal. Let me bump it down, and I'll settle for this. And I think that's a mistake. Like, we should never settle.
Yeah.
We should set really, really big goals, like that are like almost unbelievable to others, and then we should set a plan in place to go get it.
Yeah, to achieve it.
And it may take 5 years,
For sure.
but any big goal worth achieving should take that long. It should be hard. Should get knocked down, have to get back up, and prove to the world, like, I really want to do this.
Wait, as a kid, did they see you like naturally gifted in football some, or did they just see such a work ethic?
Early on, I think you could definitely say I was naturally gifted. Like, I think I hit probably like not a growth in size earlier than most, but like I was always the fastest kid, you know, like in Little League football, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then probably in junior high, everybody caught up, and then there was a lot of other people faster than me, and then I got bigger. Yeah. And so I think there was always some natural, you know, ability there, but the work ethic, the mindset, the belief, that was what I think my parents and really what I hung my hat on the most. Like, these things that I can control, nobody's gonna beat me in these. Yeah. You know, and that is how hard do I work? How much do I work? Do I believe in myself? Mm-hmm. How do I face adversity? And I had a good support system to help me with all those things. But those are the things that I could control. I was gonna undeniably like try to be the best in those, and I couldn't completely control my genetics. I could make those better to an extent, obviously by training my body and nutrition and rest. Those are things I could control, you know. So I think I always was, you know, in the upper echelon, and you know, like my team or my sport, but I worked for it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from one of the guys we had on, Ryan, what's his last name? He was a wrestler. He owns a wrestling school in Pensacola now.
Oh, yeah, Blackwell. Ryan Blackwell.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from him was, the only two things I can control, my attitude and my effort. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Yeah. And that dude, it showed with him. I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah. I use that all the time, you know, coaching.
Yeah.
Because if your attitude is great, you're coachable. You can always get better. You have what is called a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. If your attitude is poor, you have a fixed mindset. You feel like all I have is what I have, you know. Like, I can't get any better. Like, God didn't give me size. God didn't give me strength. God didn't give me, so I'm just going to have to settle. Like, but an attitude of, like, coachability, you know, like, yeah, if you tell me I can do this by doing it, I'll do it. Yeah. And
I like that fixed versus growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. So important.
It is in all aspects of life.
Right.
That's because I've gone through that when I went transition. I had a fixed mindset for like a year. Like, you know, how am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to do this. All I know is this. You know, and that is a fixed mindset to have, which I think it puts a ceiling. You know, for most people, it's like, well, now you're not going to be able to break that ceiling and grow. You know, so that's definitely a good advice.
No doubt. Two things I try to teach all athletes that I coach, and you know, anyone who needs help, I'm like, well, do you understand growth mindset, and do you understand fixed mindset? And that's a start. Like, let's get you on a growth mindset track right away, and then let's start to work on everything else. But you have to believe in yourself that whatever I put my mind to do, I can do it. It's going to take work, and it's going to take daily action. But if I believe that I can actually improve in this area, then I can.
Awesome. Yeah. Dude, so did you make it to the NFL?
I did. I made it to the NFL. I made it kind of through the back door. I tell people I wasn't drafted. I was what's called an undrafted free agent. Mm-hmm. So people that follow the NFL may know there's 7 rounds in the NFL draft, and there's 32 picks per round. So do the math. Those are the only guys drafted out of college. But after that, there's a select amount of players that can go to teams for way less money and way less, I guess you could say, security. You know, when you go as an undrafted free agent, you know, you have one bad practice and like, we don't want this guy. Get him out of here. You know, when you're drafted, you have a little bit more time. They've invested money into you.
Yeah.
So they're not just going to, like, axe you within the first week. You know, they're going to give you some time. And so I went in as an undrafted free agent to the Green Bay Packers. That was my first stop.
What years?
That was 2005.
Okay.
And I ended up getting cut right before the last preseason game, but they brought me back to their practice squad. So you have 53 active players on an NFL roster. This was at the time. And then you had 8 practice squad guys that practiced with the team, trained with the team, but they didn't play on Sundays. And they were kind of like the reserves. Anybody that got hurt or, you know, they would generally pull from that 8 to play.
Okay.
So I ended up making that and spent the first 10 games on the practice squad before I got cut again. And I went to some other teams, and I bounced around the NFL.
How hard was that? Was that like, I mean, if your dream since you were 6 years old was to be in the NFL, I mean, did it become like an idol in a sense for you that you're just like, you know?
Yes and no, right? So, like, I had a faith background, and I understood that Christ was, you know, the only thing that I would, you know, really put at the forefront of my life. Mm-hmm. However, we're all imperfect people. Mm-hmm. So as I look back, I'm like, yeah, I did. You know, even though I was trying to really walk in a way that was a reflection of following Christ, still I was imperfect, and I think I did put football as like this like idol because the way that I acted and felt when it was taken from me. So, quick story, when I got cut that first time in Green Bay, I was in Nashville. I was with the team. I flew in private plane with the team. We were playing the Titans the next day, and I got a call from management. They're like, hey, come up to the 10th floor. Got to talk to you. And I'm like, this is weird. And so I go up, and they cut me in the hotel in Nashville the night before the game. They said, hey, there's going to be a Southwest flight for you in about an hour. Pack your bags. There's a car taking you to the airport. So I flew in.
You flew in private.
You
flew out Southwest.
Flew out Southwest alone. And I got back to Green Bay late that night. I packed everything I had up in my little 4Runner, and I hit the road coming back south to Alabama, which is, you know, where my family was, where I was living at the time. And I can remember crying. I can remember, like, thinking, like, all this, and it's gone.
Yep.
You know, I was just replaying all the training, all the sacrifice, all the games, all the practices, everything. Everybody had helped me, and I'm like, man, it was all for nothing. And I didn't make it. I didn't achieve actually playing in the NFL. That was what it was all about. I was 21, and I started when I was 6, so a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I remember several, you know, people calling me on the drive, parents, but it was one call that really made all the difference in the world for me, and it was a call from one of my mentors. His name's Gary Kramer. He now serves as like the team chaplain or character coach for the University of Alabama, and he said, Zach, football does not define you. He said, I want you to know what defines you is your character, your relationship with Christ, and all the intangibles that you do every day, your work ethic, you know, your integrity, your honesty. Those things define you.
Yep.
And nobody can ever take those things away from you. And that is where your identity lies. You know, your relationship with Christ, your character. He said you knew that, but you slipped and you let football define you. And that's why you're so broken right now. because you feel like everything's been taken from you because football is taken from you. And I'm like, you're right. You know, that's what I did. And never again. You know, from this point forward, I'm going to know my identity is not in this game. I love it, and I still want to pursue it, but I'm not going to let football define me. And so from that point forward, my identity shifted to the right place. My identity is in Christ. My identity is in my character. No man can take that from me. It's all my decision. And, you know, I end up, like I said, a few days later, going back to Green Bay on the practice squad. Got cut again a second time, but it wasn't as painful. It still stung. You know,
Sure.
being told you're not good enough is never good, but it didn't make me feel broken and like I was a zero. I knew I still had value. And then a few days later, the New Orleans Saints signed me. Was on their practice squad for a few weeks, got cut. A week later, the Baltimore Ravens signed me. I was on their practice squad for a week, and then they like I was saying earlier, they brought me up. Somebody got hurt or something. They brought me up, and they said, "Hey, you're now on the active roster," which was life-changing, right, in a lot of ways. Number one, it meant I was about to achieve the dream.
Yep.
I was actually not on the practice squad. I was on the active roster, and I was going to step foot on the field in uniform and play. So I was going to achieve the dream. It was going to be a lot different money-wise, you know. Mm-hmm. So that was going to change. And then the coolest part, I think, about it is I was with the Ravens, but remember, I started with the Packers. The game they were going to pull me up for was a Monday night game in Baltimore. I think it was right near Christmas time, so probably right around now. We were playing the Green Bay Packers, a team that I had just been with for 10 weeks, all my buddies, but now I'm on the other side. And the opening kickoff, I was on the kickoff team. I ran down. I made the opening tackle of the game.
Nice.
And so if you go to, you know, like NFL stats or the record books or whatever, and you look up me, Zac Woodfin, you're going to see one tackle. Credit to my career. And that was a tackle. And I truly look back now and believe God is such an amazing, powerful God who cares about our dreams, cares about, you know, like what we work for so much that even if, you know, he doesn't have a long 10-year NFL career planned for me, which he didn't, he still's like, you know what? You work so hard for this. I'm gonna allow this dream of yours to happen, and you're gonna play. I ended up playing in. I was active for 4 games that year. Made 1 tackle, but I achieved the dream. I achieved the dream.
Yeah.
I played in the NFL. I got a tackle in the NFL, and that's going to be in the record books forever. You know. So now anybody's like, yeah, there it is. There's that one. But that to me is him saying, that's how much I love you. That's how much I care about you. I'm going to let you do it. The one I got something else for you, and it ended up being coaching, but you're going to get the one, and you're going to achieve this dream.
Do you think he allowed you to go through that, like where you were on the practice squad, got cut, on the like wiggling out that?
Yeah, for sure.
An idol.
No question.
Yeah, I mean, he probably. I mean that because as you were telling that story about when you first got cut and you were broken or whatever, I think that's all in his plan too, to be like, okay, dude, like I can see you're putting football above me, or like it's on the same level, and he's like, I'm about to teach you a little lesson in humility and also what's important in life. And he does that to all of us at some point, and it's whether or not we want to listen and sit there and be like, okay, I understand now. And then you also had that your friend who gave you that great advice, which is, you know, the truth. But yeah, I think he does that to all of us in some form or fashion, because I think especially young men, like if we're aspiring to be something greater than ourselves, and I think it's a natural thing for young men to want to do. A lot of us hey, I want to go pursue this, and this is what I want to become. And it is very easy, especially if you're a man of faith, to, while you're achieving those goals and you're working your butt off and you're like, slaving day in, day out to just achieve that goal that you want, it's very easy to put that above God at times. And I've done it in my life, and I think God, he's a loving God, and he's like, okay, I'm going to teach you a little lesson real quick.
Right.
And then at the end, because you did obey it and you're like, you understood it, I think he's like, okay, I'm going to let you have you're going to accomplish your dream, but like you said, he's got bigger plans for you.
No question.
Which is wild because probably his plans are always better, right?
Right. And I could see it.
Yeah.
I thought my plan was play in the NFL, long time, make a lot of money, stop and just enjoy life, But he's like, no, Zach, I got something way better for you. You can't see it, but I'm going to show you, just stay with me, and the best lessons are learned through adversity.
Yep.
And
oh, yeah.
I think the way that you actually learn the lesson is through humility. When you face adversity, you have a choice. Humble yourself, learn the lesson, get better, or have pride, get angry, stay the same,
Get
or
pouty.
Make excuses.
Blame, complain, defend yourself, and you end up getting no better, and most of the time getting worse, And so I'm thankful that during all that adversity, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to humble myself and figure out how to grow.
Yeah.
And part of that growth was the identity shift, and not allowing this game to define me and be just everything for me.
I think that's – how old were you at this time?
21.
Dude, that is like – I mean, you're still a young man at that point. Like, to learn that lesson at such a young age is probably one of the biggest blessings. I mean, because I don't think men in general, a lot of us learn that ever.
Right.
And you see it, and people like they're miserable and they're fighting against, and I'm sure God has put things in front of them multiple times like, hey, man, like, this is not the route I have planned out for you, but, they're – whatever you want to call it, mortal instinct is to be like, no, this is what I want. And I think you see like a lot of middle-aged men right now that are sort of miserable because they did not listen to God and they're fighting against it. But for you to learn that at a young age and just sort of like, okay, this is what it is, and then be able to flourish, to where you're at now is, it's remarkable.
Right. I'm thankful for that because, I truly believe that you go through experiences and adversities so that you can then help lead others through them later in life.
Yes.
So me end up, becoming a coach, I'd been through a lot as an athlete and a lot as a person. And so now I've got the real life testimony when other people are going through that to say, hey, man, this is how I dealt with it, and this is how I got through it. And, maybe these are some of the mistakes I made. Don't make these. These are some of the things I did well. Try to do this. But now, later in my life as a coach and trying to help as many people as I can, to your point, everything that I've gone through and still go through, it's like, how can I take all that and help others? That's where my life is at now. It's like, how many other people can I help with my story, with my career as an athlete, my career as a coach? And that's kind of what, drives me.
100%.
Now.
Yeah, you're probably having, way more of an effect on people now that you've went through all those trials and tribulations of like getting cut, not quitting, but like going through. That's turmoil and that's frustration. And yeah, like you said, you were in your car crying about it, and that's I've been through similar situations, but to be able to go through all of that and then turn it around and start imparting that wisdom that you gained at an early age to young individuals that you're coaching now is much more of a gift than, let's just say, you did make it into the NFL and you're like, and you had an awesome career in the NFL or whatever. You wouldn't have that wisdom, I don't think, to be able to impart onto these young people, because you're like, yeah, I just made it, where now you're like, no, I I worked my butt off. I got knocked down. I got back up. I got knocked down. I got back up. And this is how I did it each and every time, because that's what young kids need to learn, not just, yeah, man, just play hard and it'll work out. You know, it's like, no. And that's, I mean, for professional athletes, sometimes that's the only advice that they have, because they are gifted and they have had a gifted career, but they don't have that adversity, like facing adversity to offer to others, you know.
And you can talk to an athlete like me and Eddie couldn't. Eddie can talk to someone in military service like I can't, that you probably can't, you know?
Right.
It's like I can talk to a drug addict.
Right.
Right? Like you all probably can't in a sense, you know? So our background and our troubles a lot of times end up being like our biggest gift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a word in the 12-step program that says the past is the key, not the lock.
Yeah. Awesome. This pain will serve you well someday. That's my favorite quote. It's like anything you're going through, it's like this will serve you well. You just have to get through it, and then you can impart that on other people.
No doubt.
Yeah. The best place to be is in a place where you're of service of others, right? And it's not about you. And that sounds like your life today, right?
No doubt. You know, so speaking, you know, I've tried to really think about like how can I use all this, you know, adversity and ups and downs to help as many people as I can, you know, and I have, you know, when I was coaching in college, you know, 120 guys and staff around me. Now, you know, being with the USFL for the past couple of years, you know, 400 athletes, you know, in the league of entirety, and maybe me working with 100 of them, and it's like how can I do more? And so I think we talked about this probably a year ago, and it was a thought, but now it's fruition. I've developed a course, a digital course. It's called Mental Performance for Youth Athletes.
Come on.
And so everything that we've talked about here this morning, I've put into a format for youth to be able to like get the information of how to deal with adversity and get through it, how to take ownership for your mistakes, not blame others, how to believe in yourself and have growth mindset and set goals and then have a plan to reach those goals. So, yeah, my life is completely about other people now, and I've just been trying to find ways to help as many people as I can, and that's going to be one way. I'm excited. It should launch in about a week.
Oh, nice. I was about to ask. Yeah. I definitely want to – I'll look into that. I want my son to look at it for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, because – that's huge, I think, especially if you made it digestible for kids to read
it's
it.
Short.
Yeah.
It's you know, there's 6 lessons. Each lesson is 10 or 11 minutes long, you know, because I know the attention span is not going to be much for them. So it's condensed. There's some personal work, you know, to do with it, but it's short personal work. I'm excited about it. It's going to be easily accessible on my website, which is zacwoodfin.com. And boom, get the course and 6 courses. You know, ideally, I'd love for people to kind of go through it like 1 week at a time. And hey, this is a 6-week course, and each lesson marinate on it for a week. And but you know, however people want to go through, if they want to go straight through, it's going to be really valuable.
And this is something like any kid can pick. It doesn't matter what sport they're in, what they're doing in life.
We've tried to make it. Reach any kid, any sport. And really, we developed it for athletes, but I really believe that it could be for any kid, any youth, you know, struggling with any type of mental health, struggling with belief in themselves, struggling with anything that can be conquered through the mind.
Yep.
You know, you don't have to be an athlete to benefit from learning how to have a growth mindset, how to set goals, how to overcome adversity, how to focus. And so the title is athletes, but really it's any youth.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm definitely going to get it because, yeah, it's like I can, and especially I'm sure you have kids.
I do. I have an 11 and an 8-year-old.
Okay. So you like, I can sit there and tell my kids till I'm blue in the face, sort of the same lessons, but, you know, coming from their dad, they're like, yeah, whatever, But then if they hear it from somebody else or like have a format like that, it's like, here you go, man.
Right.
Read this.
Right.
And
It's
then,
so true.
Yeah.
My son, I tell people all the time, my son's 11, loves athletics. But, when dad's like trying to help him in athletics, a lot of times, like, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, son, I don't know what I'm talking about, man. Like, but Joey goes and tells him the same thing. Okay,
Yep.
I got it.
Oh, yeah.
Something about dad.
It is.
You
It's
know?
like, Dad, get off. Like, leave. And you're like, okay.
Right. So
I think it's because there's that pressure. They're also trying to live up to your expectations, naturally. Right. So I think they don't want when you're around. And I find that, with my son and all my kids, like if you're around trying to like, and you're trying to coach them, whatever, but they're feeling that like natural pressure of like, my dad's here. And now I have to like perform at this level, and it's all in their own head. They're like, I have to perform because he's here, and if I don't perform to that, then I'm a fail. And in their own head, they're a failure. So it is good to get another man in there to be like, hey, dude, you go ahead. It's the same thing with if you're trying to coach your wife too, right? It's
I think you make a great point there. I think it's natural for our kids to do that, and I think it's something that I've tried, and we all, as fathers, should understand, like, if we've achieved a level of success in anything, which all three of us have, different areas, that naturally our kids are going to think they must need to do that. Yep. And, of course, we want them to, but I think we can actively and intentionally tell them, like what I've told my son, like, hey, just because I played in the NFL and I played in college, like if that's not what you want in your life, and that's not something that burns in your heart, that's totally cool. Like, I'm not going to love you any less. And you don't need to think you need to do that. So almost pulling that pressure off of them just so they know, like, all right, Dad did it, but he doesn't expect me to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love for you to, if that's your
decision.
Your goal.
Yes.
Not my goal for you. And so many of us fathers, we want our kids to do what we want, or maybe what we never got to do.
Yeah, you're trying to live vicariously through your kids' accomplishments. Like, I didn't accomplish this. And you see it all the time when you go to these sports games. Or like, the parents are on the sidelines, like, are red in the face, screaming, and you're like, dude, chill out. Like, I get it. Yeah, you want your kid to win or do good, but at the same time, like, you're not your child. You know what I mean? Like, he's living his own or having his own journey right now, and stop putting yourself in that journey. Like, step back and just enjoy it and let him, guide him and help him, but don't insert your own personal stuff into his journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be
his or her journey.
Important to the child. Yeah. They have to be intrinsically motivated and inspired to be like, that's actually what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then you can support them, like any great
for sure. I'll support them no matter what.
But we can't want it more than they want it.
Nope.
And it will drive them away from doing it.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
I'm having that with my oldest son, Trevin. We had him on the podcast last week. He had just got on Marine boot camp, so he's going to recon selection here soon, which is, the Marines, it's like the Special Forces branch for the Marines, are part of what they do, and it's no joke. It's hard, and he picked it, and half me was worrying. I'm like, dude, I had on the same talks, like, you don't have to do this. Like, I'm going to be proud of you no matter what you do, But he went with it, and I tell him, I'm like, this is your choice. Is this on you? Like, you have to have the drive. You have to have the fire to want to be better. I cannot be the one guiding you along the whole time, because then I'm doing you a disservice. Right. So, yeah, it's awesome. And there's always going to be, I think, no matter how many times you say that to your child too, and like, hey, I'm not putting any pressure, there's going to be that unnatural pressure that just comes between a father and son, regardless. Yeah,
but you got other men, right, like around you.
That's what's important. Yeah.
And I even took Trevin to the side before he joined the Marines and was like, hey, man, are you doing this for your dad, for real? Like, is this pressure that you're putting on yourself? Because Eddie's not putting pressure on him, but like he could have thought it was or something. I didn't know, but he literally wanted to do it for himself.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's awesome. And that's a great, thing for us to realize is like, hey, we have other men in our life that could mentor, talk to our kid. It's gonna hit a little different.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we can work through our friends
yes,
to say, hey, look, he's probably not gonna shoot straight.
Yeah.
Have a talk with him.
yeah.
And
That's my whole goal is building up such great friends around me so that when my kids are getting older, they can be like, go talk to Uncle Eddie.
Yeah.
yes.
You know, go like having other guys around them that I trust.
The guidance will be the same.
Yeah.
Coming from you. I trust Eddie's going to say exactly what I would say, but it's going to be received a lot differently coming from him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, therefore, please talk to my son.
Yeah.
You know, make
And
the
pushing.
question.
I feel like sometimes we need that for our wives too. Like,
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
no doubt.
yeah.
Dude, so after the NFL, did you go straight into coaching?
I did.
Okay.
So the transition was my last stop in the NFL was the Houston Texans. I ended up going to NFL Europe for a season. After I mentioned the path was Packers, Saints, Ravens. Got active with the Ravens, stayed there for a while, got cut the next year. This was 2006. And then was out of football for a few months. 2007, went over to NFL Europe, played a season in Europe, got signed by the Houston Texans in the summer of 2007, got cut, and then had a couple of tryouts, but that was pretty much the last stop. And at that point, I knew I wanted to get into coaching, and so I really wasted little time getting back. I still hadn't finished my college degree because I left school a little early to pursue the NFL. So I went back to school, UAB, finished that degree, started volunteering, coaching at UAB and at the University of Alabama. So just getting experience, and that started the coaching career. But yeah, I knew pretty soon after, I tried to wait 2 or 3 months, and after the phone went silent for 3 months, I had enough, just real life knowledge to know like it's probably not gonna happen. And NFL Europe ended up shutting down, so it wasn't like I could go back there.
I was going to ask though. We sort of skipped. Like, how was it playing over there in Europe? I mean, you don't hear much about it,
right?
So.
Yeah, it was really cool. So NFL owned that league for a long time, and 2007 was the last year, and it was awesome to be able to experience Europe. I'd never, been really out of the States, but experience Europe on somebody else's dime, play the game that you love. We all lived in a hotel, so you make really tight bonds with your teammates, and so we lived in Germany and went all over Germany played in Amsterdam, took trips to Italy, to Belgium, and so I was newly married at the time, so this was a funny story as well. So Fawn came with me. However, the way that if you've been to Europe, most countries in Europe are like this, which is different from the States. When you buy a hotel room, in the States you buy a room, right? It's like $100 a night, right? You could have yourself or you could have you and your wife. It doesn't matter. Over there, it was by person. Like, how many people are staying here? If it's one, it's 100. If it's two, it's 200. And so I'm like, what? So like
one.
Yeah. So like I'm like, well, I don't have any money. It's just me. I don't get this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, babe, you're gonna have to hide from like the housekeepers and like all these hotel like people. Like, because if they know you're my wife and you're in my room, they're going to charge me like $100 extra a night. And I don't have that money. Like, NFL Europe wasn't the pay scale of NFL. And so she would hide, like no trace of a female in this room. So, like, every day,
oh, dang.
She would like have to put her clothes in a suitcase, put her makeup away. And we got I felt like we were like spy ops. We would get the schedule of like the house cleaners. I'm like, they're coming in between 10 and 11 a.m. You got to go to the gym from 10 to 1. So you're not in here. And so we end up like pulling it off for like 3 months. But like they got onto her. They saw who she was. And they're like, who is this woman that we can't figure out? Where's she at? We always see her, but we can't figure out. And so, like, they would try to, like, follow her around to see what room. I'm like, if you ever get followed, don't go to the room. Just go to, like, a pool. And I'm like, the other thing, my wife is bilingual. She speaks Spanish and English. And I said, if they start to try to talk to you and ask you, go to your Spanish, no habla English. I'm like, just act like you can't speak English. Just start speaking Spanish, because I bet you these people – they don't speak Spanish. They're going to speak German and English.
Yeah.
And so, like, anytime they, like, cornered her and they'd start to try to, like, say, who are you with? Where? She would just start speaking in Spanish and be like, I don't know. And just, like,
that's
hilarious. So frustrated. But I tell that story just to say Europe was awesome. That was one of the fun stories, outside of football. But the team was awesome. We ended up going to what they called the World Bowl. I played for Frankfurt Galaxy. And we lost the World Bowl, unfortunately, but it was awesome. I got to play a lot, start a lot of games, and end up getting signed to the Texans after that. But it was pretty short.
It was a good experience, though.
Great experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
was there a lot of people, like, in Europe show up to the games?
At our stadium, yes. I would
Yeah.
say Frankfurt was definitely the most popular team over there. They had won a lot of championships in NFL Europe, but it was I would say 30,000 folks.
Okay.
At the Frankfurt games. We'd go play some, teams that wasn't like that, but the game, American football is growing so much in Europe. I mean, now they're playing NFL games in Frankfurt. They're playing NFL games. I think they've played a game in Berlin maybe, and people say as soon as they announce a game and tickets go on sale,
Gone?
they're gone.
Really?
Within hours.
I always wondered that.
Yeah.
Just because, obviously American football, then you have European football, and, like, European football is, like, the premier over there, right? That is the sport. And I was always wondering how American football would contend with that when they're playing over, and just now you've answered it. Like, obviously they're crazy about it.
Yeah,
so
they love it.
That's cool.
They love it. And the game is growing internationally. They've played games in London. They played games in Germany. They played games in Mexico. I think they have plans to play in other countries, as well. So American football is growing tremendously internationally.
Do they call it football since football is soccer?
They do. Probably a caveat of American.
American.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's growing.
And then, so, you went, obviously, Houston. How was that there?
Houston was very short-lived, like I said.
Yeah.
So I got NFL Europe was a spring league, and so we got done playing probably in, like, May. So I went right to Houston, and I was working out with the team all summer. And then I took a break from just working out with the team. Everybody took a break in July, and then you generally report to training camp August 1st. So I trained with Houston most of the summer, just lifting and running and meetings and a little bit of light practice, but the main stuff was coming later. And I can remember I was about to get on a flight from Birmingham to go to Houston for training camp, and I got cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like the day before I was about to fly out for training camp. So it was a short-lived time with the Texans.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay, like, in really good shape for the next couple of months in case I get a tryout or anything. But if I don't get something during training camp time, like, I'm transitioning. Like, I felt it was right. Like,
yeah.
Because, see, at that time, I didn't play the season prior because I got cut in Baltimore in 2006 training camp. So I was out that season. I went to Europe in January of 2007, played in Europe in the spring, got cut again in the Texans. So this would have been 2 NFL seasons, at least, the better part of 2 seasons that I didn't play. Well, the NFL is so, in terms of just like the top talent in the world coming in, and they're just recycling players like crazy. Like I had enough, I guess, foresight to know like it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely that after not playing it for 2 seasons that I'm going to get another opportunity. And I didn't really want to do Canada, and there was nothing else. Like there was no more NFL Europe, there was no spring leagues, and so I'm like, let's transition. And felt great about it, and was thankful for the time that I had. And at that point in time, I had, like we talked about earlier, I had understood like my original goal and vision and plan for my whole life. God wants it to look different. He gave me the dreams, but it's not going to be NFL tenure. It's going to be something else. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I can accept that, I can step into this new, phase of my life and close this chapter of playing football and open this chapter of coaching.
Yeah. Do you feel like marriage helped transition that some too, being married then?
Definitely. Having a great partner, and so Fawn, my wife, we've been together since high school. So all of this that I've talked about, she's been through all of it. She's been through all of it, and she's been extremely supportive, and to have somebody who says, hey, look, just like my mentor, she's been there through the whole, and just support and love, and we talk about like our kids, like you don't have to do, no pressure, like that's fun for me. Yeah, I was like, I don't care if you play in the NFL, I don't care if you make millions or make 10. Like, I love you for you. And we can live in a studio apartment, and it's all good. Mm-hmm. So having that was super, super helpful for me. I never felt like, God, like, I got to make a certain for this woman to, like, love me and want to stay with me. If I don't have this, and if she doesn't have all this stuff, she's going to divorce me. Like, it was never.
That's awesome. Yeah, so she's like a rock.
Yes.
Pretty much. That's good.
Yes. And so thankful for her. 17 years.
Wow.
17 nice. Years, yeah, I think we're coming up on 17. We were high school.
Nice.
Yeah, as well. Best friends in high school. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, sounds very similar relationship. That's how Andrew was with me the whole time.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's not common.
Nope, it's not
common. And we need to be really thankful to have wives like that, and to understand that it's not common, and to any chance that we can get, show them, love, however they receive it, whether it's, different love languages, gifts or quality time, or physical touch, or, acts of service, find out what those are, and just, my wife's is actually like how I speak to her,
words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. And being a coach, sometimes that's hard, because I'm definitely not a coach that, like, demeans, but, like, I'm very direct, and, like, I'm very disciplined, and, like,
intense.
I'm intense, and so, like, there's times that bleeds over into how I speak to her, and she's like, I'm not one of your players, and so I've just got to continue to work on that. We all have areas that we got.
Oh, we all do.
I continue to work on how I speak.
One of the many things I ask God every morning when I have my morning conversation with him is like, dude, just show me how I can best love my wife, like, and the most, the best way possible. Like, whatever she needs, help me give her what she needs,
That's awesome.
So, I mean, because that's one of those things too, like, you can't take that on your own either. Like, oh, I'm going to be the best husband and I'm going to figure it. It's like, no, dude, you're not going to be able to figure that out on your own. Right. You need God's help with that as well.
No question.
Yeah.
No question. I'm gonna take that from you. I've got to start asking.
It works. It works. Like, because all of a sudden I'll find, my wife's like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now, but I'm doing something right. So
right. A lot of times for me, it's just like communicating. Like, a lot of times after, like, a long day of just, like, coaching, and I just go into, like, I don't want to talk mode.
Well, it's because your bandwidth is completely drained.
And
yeah.
it's like she's asking questions, I'm giving short answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, good day. Yeah, fine. And she's like, I want you to talk to me, like the details. And I think a lot of it's too just men and women. It's like, I'm just to the point. Like, I don't have to get into all these details. But that's what she wants.
That's how they communicate.
That's how they perceive love. So I need to do that.
Yep.
About it's about her.
Yeah.
And so I got to get better at that as well. Like, it was good because
yeah.
This and this and this and this and this. And so I'm a work in progress.
Oh, we all are. Believe me.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was I watch stand-up comedy all the time. I'm
Okay.
so Bill Burr's one of my favorite, and he does that whole bit where he's like, apparently my wife is this like masterpiece that's kept in the glass and everyone adores and stares at, like, oh, that is just perfect. And he's like, I'm like one of those buildings in like New York that's scaffolding around it that's constantly being like, is that thing ever going to get done?
Right. That's a good image.
Yeah.
That's a good image. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your first coaching, when you first started coaching, what was that like?
So my first coaching was volunteer work at the University of Alabama and at UAB. And it was, I think, just like a learning experience. I just kind of opened myself up to something new, like, all right, I've got to grow in something new. I need to apply all of the things that I did to be successful playing. I need to now apply those in coaching. And so it was almost like kind of starting back over and humility. Like, I don't have all the answers. I played this, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be a great coach. A lot of good players are good coaches, but there's a lot of good players that are not good coaches.
Yep.
And so I'm like, this doesn't qualify me to be great here, and I don't need to act as if it does. I need to take a posture of, I'm at the bottom. I know nothing. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to grow. And so I try to take that posture and just ask questions to, not talk too much,
Yeah.
be silent and work. That's always worked good for me. I tell people, I think there's a term called the gray man, military term. It's like just come in, you don't need to be like try to be seen with your voice, or just do your job.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll earn respect. And so I try to take that posture and just grow and ask questions and serve and do as I'm told. There's no job too small. Hey, go clean up that bathroom. Do it with a good attitude, and do it with effort.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier. Yeah. You got it. I'm gonna clean it the best it's ever been cleaned. And just try to take that approach to as many things as I could, and helped me to kind of grow fast as a coach. I left there. I went to Los Angeles. I worked for a company called Athletes Performance for 4 years. More of a private training facility that worked with a lot of like elite athletes.
And y'all lived in LA during that time?
Lived in LA, yeah. But what that allowed me to do,
a little different than Alabama.
Yeah, no doubt.
Congratulations for surving that for 4 years.
Right. We lived in like a studio apartment and paid out the wazoo for it. But great experience professionally, but also with Fawn, like to see a different part of the country.
Yeah.
Close to the ocean and the mountains and culture, got to just meet so many diverse people and understand like their life, where they came from, how they grew up, which helped me, be a better coach. So there's very few people now that I come across that I cannot relate to and talk to. Like if you're Asian, if you're from Africa, if you're from Europe, white, black, red, yellow, like
yeah,
we can find common ground. Because I've lived in a melting pot for 4 years, and I've opened myself up to all of these different types of people, and I try not to be narrow-minded. I listen to why they think the way they do, and didn't mind telling them why I thought the way I thought, and can agree on that and still be friends, even if we're different.
Yeah.
So that was awesome time in LA, and from there I got my first probably most people would consider like big break. I got a job with the Green Bay Packers as an assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Wow.
And something I always try to relay to coaches, to athletes, anybody that have opportunity to help in terms of like their job, their career. That job came about 7 years after I played there because of the way I carried myself and worked when I was there. So when I was playing there in 2005, there was an assistant strength and conditioning coach who, his name is Mark Lavatt, who, I became, I guess you would call it coach-friend, coach-player relationship. At that level, it's not the same as like college. A lot of these guys are similar age. We're all men. So
yeah.
I would call Mark. He was my friend. I still respected him as a coach. But I would always learn from him, ask, questions, and so he became the director of all strength and conditioning for Green Bay a few years after I got cut. Well, we remained in contact just as friends, and I got into coaching, so we had that. And so 7 years later, he had a job opportunity come up, and he called me about it, and I said, this is unbelievable offer. I would love to be considered for it. I was like, but I've got no experience. Like in the NFL, I've never coached in college. Like, almost like, why me?
Yeah.
And he's like, Zach, he said, you were here for 10 months, and I saw you every single day. The way you showed up, the way you worked, I saw your character. He's like, I've followed you for these 7 years through these stops, and we've talked about how you've grown. And he said, all that 7 years, that was your interview. He's like,
that's awesome.
I know what I'm getting out of you. I can teach you anything else I need to teach you, like in terms of but I know what I'm getting. I'm getting somebody with character, with work ethic, with passion. And he's like, you're qualified. He reaffirmed me. He's like, you are good enough for this. Mm-hmm. I've seen it for 7 years. And so it was really awesome.
That is awesome.
Growing point in my life, to know like how you act and how you carry yourself in front of you. Never know like what could come from that in the future,
or who's watching.
Mm-hmm. And so 7 years later, I go back to Green Bay as a coach this time, not a player. But that was an unbelievable 3 years. So we spent 3 years in Green Bay, and then I got my first opportunity to be like a director of strength and conditioning, the leader of the whole department.
Wow.
Did that back at my alma mater, UAB.
Oh, wow.
And so
your life, this circle back around.
Full circle twice.
Yeah.
I'm back in Birmingham again, So I took the UAB job in 2014 as a director, and that was short-lived because we had the best year we had in 10 years at UAB that year, but they ended up shutting down football because they said there wasn't enough money financially to make it work. And so I left on to, another job at the University of Southern Miss, but that was 14. And then 2022, we come back to Birmingham.
Yeah.
So full circle twice. And now we're back in Birmingham working with the USFL, and
wow,
it's awesome.
You feel like you're in the place now that it's like the sweet spot where everything you've done has built up to this place where now you're exactly where you needed to be. And
I definitely feel like we're in a really good groove in our family and my career in Birmingham, just because the kids are thriving in school, in sports. We're close to my parents. We're close to my wife's parents. My wife loves it. Do I think like we're settled? I don't know that to be the case. I've always tried, and my wife, we've always tried to live our lives with a posture of like, God, put us where you need to put us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be open to wherever that is. And it may not match what we want, because like I can sit here today and say, if I had it my way, I'd be completely great with staying in Birmingham until both kids graduated high school and, whatever after that. to give them stability. You know, I want my kids to have stability, and I want them to have their best friends and have, you know, that. But I've lived enough life now to know, and so has my wife, to know that it's not about us. It's about what God wants to do through us. And if he wants to do something through us elsewhere, we need to be open to that.
Yep.
You know?
Got to remain flexible.
So we have to hold on to things loosely. And so as much as I love Birmingham, I'm trying to hold on to it loosely, just in the case that God's like, I need you to go over here. You know, so that's a tough question, and that's probably the best way I know to answer it is I feel like we're in a great groove. I'd love to stay in the groove, but I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, we're locked in.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that.
It's open-handed.
Yes.
I think that's a good attitude to have.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's
a growth mindset.
It is.
Yes.
Well, it is.
Yes.
And it's like we love it here, but if we need to pick up and move somewhere else, there's a saying in the Marine Corps, semper fi, but we say semper gumby, like always flexible, because there's one thing you can count on. They're going to like make you do something else when you think you're doing, you know, the plan. They're like, nope, now it's changed. So you always got to remain flexible. And I think that mindset's awesome to have, because you're never just like, okay, this is it. And listen, like having a fixed mindset, like this is what I'm doing. It's like, no, like now plans have changed, and you need to have the mindset to change with it and go attack it, whatever is put in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And understand, like, this is a part of the master plan.
Yeah.
For your life.
Exactly.
You don't write the story. God writes the story. You know.
And you want him to.
You want him to, because that's where you're gonna.
He writes
thrive.
better stories than we do.
And if we resist that, we say no, I'm gonna write it. We're going to live a life.
You're going to learn a hard lesson.
We're going to live a life below the line of reaching our full purpose, and to live a life of adventure and of excitement and of happiness and of, you know, all the things that really God wants for us. If we stay in our story, we're going to miss out. And so we've got to be flexible and open to say, hey, look, I'm just trying to follow your plan. And the best way that I know to do that is just to be in constant communication with him via prayer, via reading the scriptures, via, you know, great friends who are, you know, helping me to see things that I can't see. And
real friends.
Yeah. And that's, it's like, if I just try to stay here, then I'm going to know. Like, when he says go, I'm going to know that's what I need to do.
It's also great for your kids to see and sort of live, right? Because they're traveling along with you if something does happen, and it's a hard thing. Because I grew up moving every 2 years. I'm an Army brat, and I really didn't think much of it growing up because that was just my life. But when I look back now, and especially when I made friends later on, that sort of they stayed in one place their whole life, and then, you know, they might have like made one change, but then they're like go back to that same spot, which is fine. But to me, I'm like, dude, thank God I had growing up where it was like constant chaos where, well, now we're going, and we lived in like Korea, China, like we moved all over. And that it's like almost gave me a growth mindset when I was little, or just the ability to adapt to any environment. And I think that is also a good education for kids to get early on. Right. Because it's just going to help them in life later. Right. You know,
that made you very resilient. And so what you just described is my kids. They've moved every 2 years, 3 years. And as much as I, you know, want stability for them, because I understand stability is good, I've got to look at the other side too and say, you know what, if it is more of a story of the resilience that these kids are going to have is going to be unmatched. Yeah. You know, and so I think it's all about how we perceive it, you know, is like stability, yes, it is good. But so if God's moving us, then now the resilience and the adaptability and the flexibility and their ability to make new friends like quick, let's just look at it in the positive light.
And you can still have stability in that kind of environment, but that stability remains in your family, your unit, right? Yes, it's like we have stability amongst us. I mean, that's how I just had one brother and just my parents, but we were like this tight, we still are. It's like this tight unit just because we went through all that together, and we remained stable as a family, even though everything outside of us was not stable. We
awesome.
adapted to everything, and I'm telling you,
that's a great outlook. The stability of the family.
What they really need is the stability of you and your wife, right, in the marriage. Like they're looking to you guys. Hey, are we okay? Are we stable?
Yeah.
And as long as y'all are right, and y'all are stable on the only thing that really is stable, which is God.
Right.
You know, then that's what they really need.
I love that. That's true. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for coming and sharing
awesome.
this. How can people get, if they want to sign up for or get your workbook?
Sure. ZacWoodfin.com. So it's just ZAC, WOODFIN, my website. And so, like I said, we're going to try to launch that course in about a week. And so sometime early in the new year, if you get on the website, you'll see mental performance for youth athletes. We're calling it the missing link. That's the name of the course because that's what I believe is missing in so many young people today. Like everybody in the world's doing training of strength, of power, of speed. Very few are doing training of this. And that's my passion. I want to empower young people and old people, anybody to understand, like, how do you make this your biggest weapon, and to help you have a successful life in your personal life or your work or your sports or whatever. So my website's the easiest place, and then social media, it's Coach_Woodfin. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, so and Facebook. So
nice, and we'll put those links below as well when this comes out, so people can click on your website or follow you on Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, man. It's been a pleasure.
Dude, awesome story.
Good stuff.
Brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Out.
Sweet.
Dude.
All right, try hit them on the same time. See if you can do it.